Okay, so I'm going to take a brief detour into Wu Qi and Wu Qi discussions. Um, and I'm going to just show you a couple quick foot position things here, and hopefully my camera will catch it. I can't reverse my camera while I'm filming, it looks to me. So, we're going to do a drive-by here on Wu Qi, the very first version of Wu Qi that I teach, because we did a version of it at the beginning of our Bakwa set. So let's talk about that. So in that particular version of Wu Qi, our feet are together. Now with my short leg, long leg thing, they don't quite come together, but basically you would want your big toes touching and you want your knees slightly bent. And that's our basic Wu Qi for the beginning of the Bakwa. There's another one where you put your feet thus, and then to here. This is about hip width for my body. And this one is common in a really good book on stance training called The Warriors of Stillness. I highly recommend having a go through on that book at some point if you're going to be studying Tai Chi. And then from here, we also have full shoulder width. And then I want to talk about a few angles that can happen. So the first angle is big toes pointing forward. And I've had some perspective issues on my phone, so bear with me. Some of them things don't quite look like what I'm saying, but anyway, I'm hoping they look forward. So big toes forward is the first one. The second one pointing forward is to actually try having this gap here pointing straight forward. And this is the one I've often used the most over the years. It's given me a fairly good amount of success. And then the third one is to actually have that second toe pointing forward. And that one has turned out to be a really good one for my foot posture as I'm getting older. It helps support my arches on this side. I have on my long side, my knee tends to sag in just a little bit as a way of dealing with the short leg, long leg thing, and it's causing a collapse in my arch. So I've actually taken to doing this particular foot posture most of the time. I just do Wu Qi. And I'm talking about just Wu Qi. This is usually the Bakwa version of Wu Qi. However, it's also a Tai Chi version of Wu Qi in some families. This one will definitely, your feet are going to be pointing inward ever so slightly. And again, the reason I'm doing it is just it's helping my foot posture. However, as soon as I start doing circling and stuff, it causes too much torque out here to be rotating outward while my foot is inward. So as soon as you start doing any sort of circling exercise, I definitely recommend returning to big toes pointing forward. Final thought, people with significant joint restrictions might just need to turn outward a little bit. I know somebody who had severe joint restrictions that caused them to walk kind of like this. And when I tried showing them this, it caused them discomfort to be just straightforward like this. So, of course, that doesn't mean you shouldn't work to gradually make it forward over time. Tendon changing is part of what we are up to, is creating better and better form as we get older, so that our posture is getting better and better and better as we get older, not worse and worse and worse. So it doesn't really matter what your joint discomfort is, but say you've got this really big joint discomfort, start symmetrical and then maybe just inward slightly to what's comfortable. And then over time, this is how tendon changing works. You will become that shape. Your tendons and ligaments and fascia and bones and joints will set themselves up to deal with that shape. And you can gradually just work that in over the years. Now, if you start late enough in life, you might never get there, and that's okay. External form is really and truly not what Tai Chi or Bakwa are about. So they're about principles, and the principles give rise to certain characteristic shapes, Aikido especially. Following those principles gives rise to certain inherent shapes rather than those shapes necessarily being something you have to impose on your reality. So instead, when you're doing these things, I always recommend viewing it from the perspective of principles rather than form. However, we use form as a way to a guide, really, a way to guide ourselves forward. So I'm going to teach you a specific form, and you're going to then find a Tai Chi teacher who teaches a slightly different version of the same thing with a slightly different form. It really doesn't matter. Feel free to explore them both. I certainly have no interest in controlling somebody else's experience of Tai Chi and Aikido and Bakwa, especially when it comes to developing health, which is so peculiar. With my short leg, long leg thing, I've never been able to do perfect form. It's literally impossible for me. I simply cannot, because this leg is too short from here to here. And therefore, when I'm in something as simple as a basic Tai Chi stance, the ground's too far. And so I end up not being as bent here as I'm bent here. And so you end up looking for, well, where's the spot where things start evening out and feeling right, rather than exactly two shoulder widths apart, exactly these angles. That doesn't work really well for healing. What works better for healing is having a concept like that. Oh, I'm going to try for this stance that has exactly this. But as you explore, gradually you might realize, oh, I gotta change the form to suit me, or this person's form over here works better for me, or that person's form works better for me. So anyway, all that to say, choose your foot posture wisely. Choose one that suits your body and brings health and healing to your body. And again, we can have the slightly out toes. We can have the symmetrical always. If you're out, even if you got one out foot that wants to outturn more than others, symmetry is key. So you're trying to bring symmetry to the body over time. Symmetry is definitely related to health in some of the studies I've looked at regarding posture and structure. So then you've got big toes forward, and you've got the gap between the first toe and second toe forward. And then last, if you really want it, and if it suits your body, have that second toe forward. So foot posture, a little bit about tendon changing. Here's the entire exercise. You're going to bend your knees slightly, not much, just a little bit. Definitely do not have them locked. You should never have them locked ever in Tai Chi, Bakwa, or Aikido, period. The only martial art that I'm aware of where you would have your legs or joints locked at all is Wing Chun. And I have not assessed that Wing Chun is good for my joints. So anyway, I'll probably get a lot of flack if that ever becomes a public statement, but here's what we're doing. We're trying to help our joints. So we're trying to bring ourselves into the most natural symmetry that we can find for our bodies. Excuse me, a little hiccups here. Okay, so all that aside now, choose whichever stance is best for you. Make sure your feet are symmetrical, knees slightly bent, and then here's the entire meditation for this first Wu Qi, and the first one we were doing in our Bakwa circling. I want you to feel the bottom of your feet, stay upright, and just relax. And we're going to do that. I'm going to do about a 5-minute meditation of that, and we'll call it good. Let's talk. I'll meditate a little bit out loud, as it were, just to process what I'm experiencing. Yeah, I think that's all. It's a very simple exercise. All of these things are externally simple, internally complex. Okay, so feeling the bottom of our feet, knees slightly bent, staying upright. So right away, I of course become aware that I'm not actually able to hold still. And that's okay. I am not a statue. I just released something from my shoulders, and my shoulders sank down a bit, drawing my fingertips towards the earth. I can feel gravity sucking at me. My main focus is on the bottom of my feet. I can really feel gravity sucking at those fingertips right now. I can feel my upper chest release, and as it does, things sort of unwind and settle downward. And I try and listen to each release all the way down to my feet. I can feel the gentle sway of myself within gravity. I don't ever try and say no to the edges. Say I sway too far forward and I start to feel like, oh, I'm going to fall, like a little bit of muscular stuff starts to try and stop that from happening in my feet. Do it the other way. That's the tension version of controlling. Instead of controlling through tension, if I find myself too far forward such that my feet are starting to be like, ah, all I have to do is say yes to the center of the center of the center. Without any extra muscular tension, I return to the center. I can feel the contact points on my feet, the classical 3 points of Tai Chi. I should talk about that at the end of this section. Feel my toe tips touching the earth. I just felt a nice release in my sort of lumbar region, and it released something all the way up my spine. Feel my shoulders letting go, dropping weight downward more into my feet. I let my feet become flat as pancakes. My arches are reasonably strong. Part of what allows me to really feel safe, totally letting go to that thought, is this foot posture I've chosen. When I'm a little bit more to the center, my arches are not helped by that sensation of totally letting go. Here, slightly turned in, feel a lot of safety. Feel the tension patterns in my feet and ankles. When they let go, I can let them just rest into the earth. Let everything rest downward. I can feel gravity just pushing downward on me. Like a waterfall. If you've ever seen martial artists standing under waterfalls, it really helps to develop a sense of verticality. Verticality being a word I borrowed from a sensei. I'm not sure it's actually a real word. I mean my uprightness. My verticalness. The more upright I get in there, the more I'm just resting into my bones. The more and more I can just let go with my muscles. There's an expansive feeling to it. When I let go, I feel a release in my hips. I feel like I become more upright, somehow subtly taller. And simultaneously, I can feel my feet just becoming more and more grounded. I can feel like there's roots reaching way down, deep into the earth. I found myself getting just a little bit over straight in the knees. It's not wrong to be a little bit exactly straight for a moment. The thing we don't want is that locked out thing. And if you go for exactly straight, you might find yourself locking out really easy. So we go for slightly bent, which is definitely the best for your nerves and arteries, and probably the best for your joints. And again, just keeping them slightly bent. And letting my weight down into the feet. I can feel how the breath in my belly sways the entire structure of my body. I can feel that breath on the bottom of my feet. You just stay there and rest. My hands are getting warmer. My voice feels like a lower timbre pitch. My mind feels more calm. I'm just observing myself swaying. Like a tree in the wind. And try holding that. I recommend doing Wu Chi for 5 to 10 minutes at a time most of the time. Go ahead and blink your eyes open right now, though. And just be aware that, you probably don't want to loop my video and hear my chit chat again, but listen to that and maybe just carry it forward for 10 to 15 minutes. Pause the video and watch the rest when you're done. However, I will say this is also, in my opinion, the first Wu Chi stance to try going to an hour for. You're not really... Every style of Tai Chi teaches a certain amount of stance training. Sorry, I blinked my eyes open. I'm coming back out now. Again, feel free to pause the video and go on for a minute and do your meditation. However, I need to just point out that this is the best one to start for an hour at a time, because it's very simple. It doesn't require the same level of physical exercise as the Wu Qi, the more classical, I think, I forget all the Chinese terms right now, but this one here, I'm going to sink these knees a lot deeper, and I'm going to have my shoulders activated, and I'm going to be holding that core together. So there's going to be this whole sequence of stuff. Oh man, got to work on that upper body posture and these postures. One of the things that my spinal injury did is it shoved my chest forward, and it's created this mess up here. Still working with it. Every time I see myself in the video, I'm like, oh, my form is terrible. But the ideal would be, roughly speaking, spine, especially this lowest part, flat, upright, knees bent, ball out there. And my t-shirt appears to be making things muddy as well. So obviously that one just takes a lot more exercise, but you would want to eventually try and get after at least an hour at some point with that guy. I'm not the biggest stance trainer in the world, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that there's a lot of value in it. In the progression of what we're doing, it's one of our first tasks is to have all of this musculature activated and yet be as relaxed as possible. When you do that, you start learning to differentiate muscle from muscle. The trapezius should never fire to bring up the shoulder, right? The trapezius stays down. I shouldn't really be firing except just to stabilize my head and neck at all. My anterior deltoid has to do something. My bicep really shouldn't have very much there. There's a little bit on that lateral bicep because of the way the bicep holds, closes this and supinates and all these other things that it's involved with. And there's a little bit of musculature, of course, up here, firing to keep this hand, a little bit in the hand. And then you're like, how do I relax everything? So this is a very important piece in the progression from deep relaxation to taking that deep relaxation into movement of daily life is stance training. And the very first one is just this one we just did. Knees slightly bent, stay upright, relax. Feel the bottom of your feet or your center. That's always an option. The center is much better when you're doing, basically once you add other pieces. So, even this one, boom, you add the basic Wu Qi pieces. I prefer this guy. The bottom of the feet is better for learning deep relaxation. And that ties into how deep relaxation and down weightedness are flip sides of the same coin. They're borderline the same thing. So learning to feel the bottom of that feet or wherever you're compressing the ground with my knee right now, for example. Now that's my down weighted point. And if I was hanging from a bar and had nothing touching the ground and I just had the bar, my hands right there are the down weighted point. And it's super important. Center, movement from and creation from here, and down weightedness and extension and relaxation are our four primary points talked about in by Koichi Tohei in Key in Everyday Life, another fantastic book to read and take some pointers from. If you've taken kinesiology, a couple of his key extension exercises aren't very impressive, but the gist of his book is fantastic. Okay, and then I wanted just to make one more quick point. Again, so you can start working that guy up to an hour. Oh, and you do that and you will feel it in your calves, actually. That little bit of sway you got going on. It's not nothing in an exercise department. It's all endurance, but it'll kind of do a relatively well-rounded tear up of your calves. Okay, so the final point that I need to make here is the 3 points on the bottom of the feet are here. I think I can see here and here. And you'll hear those ones talked about a lot in Tai Chi schools. And you want to have connection with all 3 of those points. Some Tai Chi schools are heavy in the heels. That tore up my spine when I decided to do it. I don't recommend doing that. But heels and those 2 other points at the same time, great one. I gotta say though, energetically connecting your perineum to the kidney 1 point, which is this little hollow kind of between these 2 points, you want to learn that connectivity place. So that perineum sensation, that lowest chakra, whatever you want to think of it as, and its relationship to those 2 kidney 1 points, you want to learn to maintain that awareness. It's not an exact physical alignment, but it is an energetic alignment that's very important. Okay, so I would recommend doing at least 5 to 10 minute versions of Wu Qi regularly. And, I only do them a few times a month, but I'm doing them, I do other stance training as well. We'll talk about those bit by bit. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too discombobulated. I managed to do a really bad job and record a bunch of stuff that I didn't actually push record button on, so I had to come back and reorganize my thoughts and get going again. And I'm running late, so thank you. I hope it helps.